Good day. It's March the 13th, and I just want to say a few words about the next generation, talking about how bad off they are and that how I had it so easy, how houses were so cheap and so food was so cheap. That's not true. That's not true for a minute. When I started working in 1965, 66, somewhere in there, when I started working, I made 50 cents an hour. And that went a long ways. So 50 cents an hour, but my rent was $75 a month. Do the math. 50 cents an hour. So a steak was like $1 a pound, right? I had to go 2 hours of wages to buy a steak. So I didn't buy steak. I bought hamburger, or I bought chicken, I bought something. I never ate in restaurants. Never had any idea of, oh, I think I'm going to take home stuff. No, I never thought of that. I never thought of skip the dishes, and never thought of having someone in cleaning your house, or having a Starbucks wasn't a thing. They might have started maybe a decade after that, but the whole thing is relevant if you think about it right now. And yeah, the houses and rent are out of whack, but look at the rest of it. Look at how you're spending and saying, oh, I'm doing terrible. Well, I'd do terrible too if I had two cars, two payments, two gas tanks, two insurance. You've got to give up something to live. Right now, you are being a slave to the lenders. That's what you're doing. So every penny you got or scrounging at, oh, what was that little thing there? Everything that you got going is actually, you owe somebody something. I mean, that's your life. It's almost like a salmon. You go up the stream all the time as a regular worker. You're always going up the stream. Your body is bloodied and bashed up, and when you get to the top, you die. That's it. So you got to look after yourself now, and you got to look after your family relationships and all this stuff, because at some point you are going to retire, and you're going to be sitting in the room with the person that you're married or you've been living with for years, and you look across and say, whoa, I don't know that person. I don't know what they don't like, because I've been so busy obsessed with my job, or my my boating and all the toys I have with the 4x4s and guns and whatever else everybody does. Focus on your family. I mean, what is left, right? I mean, rent is expensive, right? But so is two car payments and two gas tanks and daily Starbucks. You want to talk about $4? I don't know what it is in the United States. I don't know what it is in Canada, but I know it's around in Canada is around the $5-6 mark for a other than a straight coffee at Starbucks. So you figure that, and some people have two a day, but let's say you only have one a day. And you have one a day all the time because you just love it. It's the greatest thing, and it's cool to walk around with a Starbucks. Look at me, I got a Starbucks in my coffee cup. Think about it. Let's say average it out to $5. 365 days in a year. That's $1,800 just for your coffee. And you're thinking, oh, I'm in the hole at the end of the year. Another thing to do is overpay on your taxes in your paycheck. It's very easy to do. You ask your company to take an extra 10% off or what. When it's tax time, you get money back, and you say, yeah, but they're holding my money. Yeah, but you're not spending it. It will trickle out of your hands and disappear somewhere. There's ways to deal with this. And the other way is having three piles of money. You have three piles of money. You have your savings, your fund money, and your regular bills to meet your lifestyle. So when you run out of fund money, you don't dip into your savings or your house money. You have to bite the bullet. And if you don't, then you're borrowing from your savings, and then that affects your future. So you got to regiment yourself to dealing with your family. I mean, what you realize, I don't know how many people realize this. There are kids right across North America. They're waiting for their parents to die so they can get an inheritance and a chunk of their 500 to $1 million home. This is crazy stuff. Look after yourself now, and keep in good grace with your parents, because in the end, after all this crap is done, The only thing you all your friends leave you, friends die on you, your wife leaves you. What's left is your family. And if you're not doing that, then what do you have left? What do you really have left? Look after your money. You think, the reason why the kids don't see daddy is because he's too busy with all the toys and maybe a second job to pay for the second car and all this. Figure it out. I mean, when I have in a relationship, we've never had two cars. We've had one car, and I get a ride to work. On the way to her work, I get a ride to work. Then I'd find a way back, whether it's the bus or walking or whatever. It's not a big deal. But when you're used to, well, what if I want to stop for a few things on the way home? You can't wait till your wife comes home or your husband comes home with the car so you can just go to the corner store. Or hell, take your kids down the street, pull them down there in a wagon or something and say, come on, kids, let's go into the store and buy some groceries. It's something's missing in the formula here, but you can't always blame. And what's happening now is house shaming your parents. Oh, they're so lucky. They got a home. Well, when I was making 50 cents, houses were around $15,000 to $20,000. And you're saying, wow, that's cheap. 50 cents an hour. I'm in no worse condition than you are now. So this is what you don't understand. And your parents, now, even though they may be older, they may be, the age of my children, around 40, and you think, well, okay, so, maybe they can't afford a home. The thing is, your parents had a home because they saved for it. They saved the 3 pile of money thing. They did a whole bunch of stuff to save it. They didn't have two cars. And my dad always took a streetcar or a bus or a subway to get to work. We didn't even have a car. As a matter of fact, forget cable, we didn't even have a TV. And what we did is kids in the neighborhood go and knock on a door with a football under your arm and say, let's go play in the park. And you get into community stuff, right? It's free. Your kids enjoy it. And you know what? You think, oh, my kids love Disneyland and kids love this. You know what they love more? Spending time and playing park games and stuff with their parents. Or even taking a neighbor's kids too, the two families. It's not about amusing your kid with a laptop, a phone. They become distant. The whole thing, like, oh, school's so expensive now. You got to buy them a laptop and a phone and new brand name clothes. Who said that? You didn't. Someone else told you that's what you do. So you're going out to buy a laptop so your kid can play with it when he comes home. You're getting a phone so he can text people. And then your kid will tell you, this is what your kid's going to tell you. Oh, but if I don't have a phone, how will you get a hold of me? I don't know. How did your parents get a hold of you? I mean, think about it. It's a scam. When was the last time you phoned your kid to try and get a hold of him at school if something going on? Let me guess. 0? So this is where it's at. And I'm personally getting tired of saying, oh, you're so lucky. Well, I'm not lucky. I'm not lucky at all, because it just happens. When you're saving and watch how you spend your money, good things happen. But if you're going to be a slave to people that are lending you money, and especially credit cards, they'll say, oh, don't worry about it, it's a minimum payment. You'll pay that minimum payment forever. And then if you say, well, I know what I can do, because I just got to have the Xbox 22 or whatever the hell it is. I want an Xbox, so I'm going to go get another credit card because they'll give me one. And I'll put it on there. Then I only pay $50. So now you get $100 forever. And it just piles up. And then you claim bankruptcy, right? At some point, these people that do this, they have 3 or 4 credit cards going, they can't pay them, just the minimum. And they end up in a bankruptcy because the $50 payment creeps up to $50, $100, $150, and get another card. It's like, oh, it's the minimum payment, don't worry about it. $200, $300, $500, and it all adds up. So I don't care, that's your lifestyle. But don't blame me because I have a house. I mean, your parents had a house and they made sure that they kept that house. They weren't saying, well, when you come home and say, oh, Dad, everyone's got a fancy new bike and I want one. They say, sorry, we can't afford it. You don't say that. You tell your kid, oh, don't worry, I'll get you one. Then somebody steals it. Oh, don't worry, I'll get one. Even though they stole it because he didn't lock it. It just goes on and on. They don't have to, kids now don't have to work for an allowance or chores around the house, and they think the biggest chore is, oh, do I have to load the dishwasher? Like, come on. And you can't shelter your child from bad things, right? You can't, and I'm not talking pervs or anything. I'm talking bad, like the family's all of a sudden someone's laid off and now oh, we're suffering here, and you say, well, we'll just pretend like that. We'll start putting their clothes that they need on the credit card and do this and do that and borrow and do yeah, so they don't have a bad feeling. Well, guess what? They're on their own now, and they think everything. Not all. I'm not going to generalize, but there are people out there that think just because they can't have something that they really want, it's either their parents' fault or my fault or the government's fault or whatever else. It's just bizarre. So, I mean, you can't shelter your children. If you're laid off, you say, oh, okay, well, you do your family damage assessment and tell your kids, you know what, we can't afford to have meat anymore for dinner. We'll have craft dinners or sandwiches and different kinds of meat. That's the way it is. And they learn that in their head, that when times are tough, you pull up your boots, right? They don't get it now. They don't get it now because no one ever made them suffer. You have to suffer. As they say, you have to suffer to sing the blues. You can't just sing the blues and say, well, how did you suffer? Oh, well, they're trying to get rid of TikTok. TikTok? They're trying to get rid of your health care. You're worried about TikTok? Yeah, but I got my friends on here. Whatever. So something is disconnecting. And, you know, when they talk about these helicopter parents that are on their kids and go to the school and say, why did you tell my kid he has to stand in the hall? He's disrupting the class. My kid feels isolated and alone and blah, blah, blah. You know what? The kid shouldn't be disruptive, right? Why should everyone else suffer because your kid? Now you want your kid back in the class disrupting and other kids lose interest in school. So there's a whole bunch of dominoes that are ready to fall, and they'll fall once you're dead. And I'm going to some point, probably in the next 5 years. So when you drop dead, and they're on their own, and they say, "Wow, got Daddy's house and got mommy and Daddy's house and money in the bank and everything else," and they get it, and the son says, "I always wanted a Lamborghini," you know, and off they go. It's like the careless money that's spent is the money that you leave for retirement, like when you should I say for your estate, because people get it and it's bonus money. Oh, I'm gonna go for a trip around the world, and they don't take it and pay down their bills or pay down anything. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't want to lecture people. I worked my ass off starting when it was legal. I was working at sweeping floors in the meat market and the fish, delivering chips in the fish and chip store, sweeping floors at the supermarket, because my parents didn't have money for an allowance. There's 6 kids. My dad said, you want an allowance like some other kids? Go make your allowance yourself. Go to the store, go looking for work. Cut lawns, wash windows, I don't know. So that's what we did. It's called hustling, right? In Toronto, that's where I was raised, in Toronto, Ontario. When I was raised there, when money was short, you hustled. You go out and you're buying and selling stuff you find in the newspaper that you know that's worth more, and you're making nickels and dimes. You don't care how much you made as long as you were keeping your head above water. You were hustling. And it's not rare to go in Toronto when someone opens their trunk and they're trying to sell you stereos and you name it, you know, clothes, knockoff Gucci's. They survive, and whether they're immigrants or whatever, everybody, including your neighbors that are immigrants or Canadianized or whatever, everybody is out to make their way in life. So don't criticize people about their lifestyle or anything else. They're like you and me, out to make their way through life till they get to the end, at the end of the stream, bashed up and bloody, and die. So anyhow, I hope you kids kids are probably 25. You kids will learn there's lots of disappointments, you know. I wanted a unicorn and I never got one. So it was like, there's lots of disappointments, but you got to learn how to get past those. And it's not by buying more credit card stuff and credit card debt and all that sort of nonsense. It's not doing that. So let's figure it out. Maybe if you want me to say something else, I'll say it. But I've basically that's the way it's been. You've always owed somebody something, right? Whether it's not necessarily a home. I could have bought a home um, when I was a teenager starting out work. 50 cents an hour. Figure it out. How much is that? $40 a week? And you say, oh, it can't be. Yeah, it can be. My rent was like 70. So by the time I did my rent, which was half of my paycheck, and ate, there was nothing left. So where the young people think that the parents had all this money in the world because they weren't making $25 an hour or even $20 an hour, they were making 50 cents. And when I got another job as a printed graphic artist and I got 80 cents an hour, oh my, I thought I died and went to heaven. 80 cents an hour. And you say, well, that's ridiculous. No, that's the way it was. You could buy a car. I could buy a brand new car. Look up the facts. I could buy a brand new car in those days, and I did. Bought a brand new Honda Civic. I think I paid $2,000 for it. Brand new. So that's what I did. I paid cash for it. Saved up money and paid cash for it. So I didn't have any loans or anything else, just put gas in. And gas, you say, oh, well, your gas was 25 cents an hour or 25 cents a gallon. Well, yeah, a gallon, okay? So if I made 20 cents or if I made 50 cents an hour when I had my car, then what does that add up to? I'd have to work a half an hour for a gallon. I mean, it's all relevant, even to now. I mean, just think if you didn't drive that second car and didn't pay insurance on it, you'd have all this extra money. But the whole thing has got to lock in savings. And you got to lock them in by putting stuff in extra on your tax treatment, I guess they call it. And then at the end of the year, you get money back. Now, me personally, I put money in. They don't care. It's just the deduction. The computer's doing it. Before it used to be a nuisance. Now it's just they click it, click, 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 done. So now what happens is, but the end of the year and after Christmas, those people feel, oh, geez, my life's falling apart because I spent it. My kid wanted a brand new electric scooter for $1,500 and this and that. You get to January or February, whenever your tax time comes out, and you'll get thousands of dollars back. And then instead of being down in the dumps, you're up on the top of the roller coaster. But anyhow, that's all I'm going to say. I'm probably boring you with it, but I just resent saying, oh, you're so lucky. Well, I'm not lucky. I worked for it. I worked hard for it, and I watched what I was doing. So, I mean, that's, you don't tell people your parents were so lucky they had it so easy. They didn't. They didn't. And that's the way it was. The whole goal was making sure the family was intact. But that's not the goal now. The goal now is, I met a guy that I work with, and he said, "Oh, and I worked with him, and he says, oh, I'm just getting married." And I said, "Oh, is she nice?" He goes, "Oh, she's got a good job." So all he was thinking of, she was a nurse, he was a meat packer, because that's where I worked for years. He was a meat packer, and here he is bragging about his wife's wage. Knew nothing about it. He didn't tell me anything about her. But he thought, well, my wage and her wage, we can have campers and skidoos and. Anyhow, rethink your life, and things will change for the better. And good luck, but stop blaming me. Because you know what? I'll start telling dad jokes, and I'll get even with you. Have a good day.